Story 1. The man who stood still for hours. 3:11 a.m. My phone buzzed with a ring alert. What I saw on the feed has kept me awake every night since. It was 3:11 in the morning when my phone buzzed with a ring notification. I almost ignored it. I get raccoons nosing around the trash cans or neighborhood cats slinking across the porch. But when I opened the app, the screen froze me in place. At the edge of the driveway, beneath the dull wash of the street lamp, a man stood perfectly still. He wasn't moving. He wasn't even shifting his weight. Just a human outline locked in place facing my house. I stared at the video, waiting for the usual signs of life. The scratch of a nose, the swing of an arm, but nothing came. For 1 minute. 2. 5. The recording ended only because the motion timer cut off. The next morning, I convinced myself it was some drunk who wandered too far from a party. Suburbia has its share of odd wanderers, right? Still, I checked the camera history. The clip sat there, grainy and ordinary, until I realized how long he had stood without moving. Almost 15 minutes. I went about my day half forgetting it until the following night. Again, 3:11 a.m. Again the ring notification. And again the same figure frozen at the curb. This time I zoomed in, but the street lamp's glare turned his face into a pale blur. He didn't step forward. He didn't leave. He just stayed. By the third night I was ready. I sat up in bed with the phone charging beside me, screen brightness dimmed. When the vibration came, 3:11 like clockwork, I opened the live feed. There he was. Same stance. Same spot. Except this time I felt his posture. He wasn't just standing. He was facing directly into the camera as if he knew I'd be watching. I whispered out loud to no one, "What do you want?" My voice sounded too loud in the empty room. The man didn't react. He just remained a dark silhouette, shoulders square, arms heavy at his sides. I thought about calling the cops, but what would I even say? There's a guy not trespassing in my yard, just standing still? By the fourth night, I stopped sleeping altogether. I sat in the living room, lights low, staring at the ring feed like it was my only window to the world. At 3:11, the alert chimed, sharp and cruel. He was there again. Same place. Same stillness. I pressed replay over and over, convinced I'd catch some tiny movement I'd missed before. Around the 10th replay, I noticed something. His head was slightly tilted, just enough to suggest attention, like he was leaning in, listening through the silence. The hair on my arm stood up. It wasn't random anymore. This wasn't a drunk or a lost jogger. He was waiting for something. Maybe waiting for me. On the 5th night, I almost didn't check. My eyes burned from exhaustion, and part of me wanted to believe it had all stopped. But when the notification buzzed, dread forced my hand. I opened the feed. At first, relief he wasn't there. The driveway looked empty under the street lamp. Then a flicker at the edge of the frame. He stepped closer. Just one stride, but enough to reveal his face. The grain sharpened into pale skin, hollow eyes, and lips pressed flat as if holding back a smile. I dropped the phone. My pulse thundered in my ears. When I picked it back up, he hadn't moved again. Frozen but nearer now. The following night, I couldn't bring myself to wait. I left the app open beside me, every muscle tensed. At exactly 3:11, the chime hit, and the video jolted alive. No slow approach this time. No careful distance. He was inches from the ring lens, face filling the screen. His eyes locked straight into mine. The feed stuttered, then froze. When I hit replay, the clip was gone, deleted from the cloud like it had never existed. My chest felt hollow. I don't know what's worse, that he was so close I could see the breath fog on the glass, or that someone or something didn't want me to keep the evidence. Would you open the door if he finally knocked? Story 2. The whisper through the intercom. Imagine your doorbell speaking to you in the middle of the night, not with a chime, not with a knock, but with your own name whispered through static. It was 12:42 a.m. when I first heard it. A faint crackle, like an old radio warming up, seeping from the tiny speaker of our Ring doorbell. No one had pressed it. No motion alert had popped up on my phone. Just that quiet, scratchy hiss breaking through the silence of our porch. At first I thought it was a glitch. We'd had issues before. Neighbors' Wi-Fi overlapping, interference from the router. I even muttered something about cheap electronics while checking the app. The live view showed nothing but the still porch, the potted plants swaying, the street lamp throwing its usual pale light. But the static kept pulsing, soft and deliberate, like someone breathing against the mic. The next morning, curiosity got the better of me. I pulled up the recordings on the Ring app, expecting silence. Instead, the clips were full of it, soft bursts of static sprinkled between regular motion alerts like something was bleeding into the feed. Every clip from the night carried the same faint distortion, as if the microphone had been left open. I tried to laugh it off. Maybe kids nearby were messing with walkie-talkies, or maybe the software picked up interference from a neighbor's baby monitor. But when I replayed one clip with my earbuds in, I froze. The static wasn't random at all. It rose and fell like speech patterns. Pauses. Intonations. Almost like someone was trying to form words just buried under the crackle. That night, I sat in the living room with the app open, determined to catch it live. The house was quiet, my wife upstairs, the kids asleep. At first, the screen showed the same calm porch as always. But then the audio feed filled with that same soft crackle. Only this time, it shaped itself into something sharper. A low murmur. A stretched syllable. My daughter's name. Clear, unmistakable, dragged out in a whisper that made my skin prickle. I shut off the live feed instantly, heart pounding. I told myself it had to be a trick of the mind, some mix of sound and imagination. But I couldn't deny it. The doorbell had spoken her name and no one was standing outside. I didn't tell my daughter what I'd heard. No point scaring her. But the following night, the doorbell spoke again. This time, I didn't need earbuds or playback. The sound carried faintly into the hallway, like someone standing just beyond the glass. My wife heard it too. We froze by the staircase as the speaker fizzled, then steadied into a voice. It wasn't a name this time. It was a sentence. A whisper so thin it seemed to slide under the door itself. Open the door. The words were calm, patient, almost rehearsed. I yanked the router's plug from the wall, expecting silence. But the voice lingered, hissing through the tiny grill of the doorbell as if it didn't need Wi-Fi at all. I pulled the front door open just an inch, thinking maybe some lunatic was crouched on the porch, messing with us. But the porch was empty. The street was empty. The air smelled like damp asphalt, and the only sound was the faint hum of the doorbell still alive in my hand. I slammed the door shut and shoved the deadbolt across. We sat in the dark, listening. The voice returned, softer now, almost coaxing. You're safe. Just let me in. My wife pressed her hand over her mouth, and I felt my own body go rigid. This wasn't interference. This wasn't some neighbor's signal. Something, or someone, was speaking through our doorbell without being there at all. And God help me, I couldn't tell if it was a person outside or something already inside the system. By morning, the house was quiet again. No whispers, no static. I stepped outside to check the device, half expecting to find nothing wrong at all. Instead, the plastic faceplate hung loose as if someone had pried it open with a knife. The lens was cracked straight through, the metal grill bent outward like something had been trying to crawl its way free. I haven't reconnected the Wi-Fi since. The doorbell sits dead on the wall, but I still glance at it every night, waiting for the glow of its ring to return. Would you keep listening or rip it off the wall? Story 3. The mask left on the porch. It was just another quiet night in the suburbs, until the mask showed up on my porch. It was 1:09 a.m. when my phone buzzed with the familiar ring notification. I don't usually check them. Most of the time it's just raccoons or the neighbor's cat. But that night, curiosity got the better of me. The feed showed my porch under the pale wash of the motion light. Nothing unusual except for the mask. A plain, white face lying neatly on the welcome mat, where I knew there hadn't been one before. At first, I thought maybe a package had come late, though no delivery company drops things off past midnight. The mask just sat there, blank, expressionless, almost like it was waiting for something. The strange part? I replayed the video. It didn't just appear. A figure walked up slowly, placed it down, and left without a sound. No knock. No words. Just the mask and the porch light flickering as if it had swallowed him whole. The next morning, I opened the door expecting it to be gone, maybe some kid's idea of a prank. But it was still there, resting like a guest I hadn't invited. The porch light had clicked off with daylight, but somehow that made the mask look even worse. Its smooth surface reflected the sun, almost too clean, like it hadn't been handled at all. I bent down to pick it up, and then stopped. I couldn't explain why. Something about touching it felt wrong. So I left it. Call it laziness or superstition. I'll take either. That night, though, I checked the camera again. Same timestamp, 1:09 a.m. The porch lit up, the feed jittered, and there was the mask. Only it wasn't where I remembered leaving it. It was closer. A few inches sure, but I knew exactly how far from the door I'd seen it last. And this time the video showed nothing placing it there. Just a blank stretch of porch, a light buzz, and then, closer. I tried to laugh it off. Maybe wind had nudged it, or a squirrel decided it was worth dragging around before getting bored. But the porch mat doesn't shift easily, and the mask was heavier than it looked. I even tested it myself. Placed it back where it started, shut the door, waited, checked. Nothing. It stayed put. Still, I told myself it had to be coincidence. That's how I work. There's always an answer even if I don't like it. On the third night, I didn't sleep much. My phone buzzed again and I opened the feed half expecting, half dreading what I'd see. Sure enough, 1:09 a.m., porch light on. This time the mask wasn't at the edge of the mat. It was almost at the door, tilted slightly upward as if staring at the camera. And the worst part? The playback froze for 2 seconds right before it shifted. No figure. No movement. Just the mask, closer than before. By then, the mask wasn't just some creepy prop. It was an intrusion. I started checking the porch in daylight, half hoping it would vanish on its own. That morning, the mat looked different, like someone had pressed down on it with both feet. 2 faint impressions, side by side, angled toward the door. No one else noticed, of course. Neighbors waved, kids biked past, life went on. Meanwhile, my front step had become a stage set for something I couldn't explain. I thought about tossing the mask into the trash, but every time I opened the door, I froze. There was this smell, faint, like damp cloth mixed with something sweet, almost metallic. It seemed stronger when I leaned closer to the mask, as if it carried a scent that didn't belong to the porch or to me. Instead of picking it up, I shut the door harder than I meant to, as if closing it fast enough could keep whatever it was from slipping in. The fourth night I didn't wait for the notification. I opened the live feed a few minutes early, watching the empty porch like it was a movie screen. The clock ticked past 1:08, then 1:09. Right on cue the light blinked on. And this time the mask wasn't on the mat at all. It was on a face. Someone stood there, perfectly still, wearing it, angled toward the camera. No motion. No sound. Just a faceless head staring straight through the lens. I froze, phone in hand, heart pounding so hard I could hear it over the silence. I wanted the figure to move, to leave, to prove it was just another prank. But it didn't. The feed crackled, the image pixelated, and for a few seconds the figure leaned closer, filling the frame with that white, empty face. Then, black screen. The feed cut out completely. I sat in bed, staring at my reflection on the dead screen, afraid to even breathe. I don't remember how long I sat there before the doorbell rang. The sound echoed through the house, sharp and deliberate. My phone lit up again, ring notification. Someone's at your door. I tapped the live feed, fingers shaking, but the screen stayed black. Just the loading wheel, spinning and spinning while the bell rang a second time. And a third. My chest felt tight, my throat dry. Would you touch it or leave it there forever? Eventually the chime stopped. I didn't dare open the door. When morning came, sunlight felt almost fake, too bright against the porch. I opened the door slowly, breath held. The mat was empty. The mask was gone. For a moment I thought maybe it had all been in my head, until I turned around. There it was, sitting neatly in the hallway, propped against the inside of my door. Waiting. Story 4. The silent knocks at 4 a.m. Every night at 4 a.m., my front door comes alive with a sound no camera can fully catch. And I need you to hear this, because once you do, you'll never open your own door the same way again. It started at exactly 4 a.m. I know because my phone lit up with the ring alert, the glow cutting through my half-sleep like a knife. The notification said motion detected, front door. But when I tapped it open, the live view showed nothing. Just my porch light humming, the welcome mat slightly crooked, the wooden door framed in static shadows. And yet, clear as day, the system had recorded a knock. At first I thought it was a glitch. Maybe the door had creaked, maybe the wood shifted in the night air. That happens in old suburban houses. Mine isn't that old though, built in the late 90s, brick front, clean driveway. Quiet neighborhood, families with kids, the kind of place where a knock at the door usually means borrowed sugar or a package mix-up. Not 4 a.m. though. Never then. The following night, I left the phone on my nightstand, volume up. Sure enough, at 4 a.m. sharp, the alert came again. I sat up, heart already thudding, and swiped open the feed. The porch was empty, until the sound came. One knock. Hollow, deliberate, against the wood. The camera caught it too, but the frame showed only my front door. No hand. No figure. Just the sound. I replayed the clip half a dozen times, leaning closer to the screen, searching for anything. A shadow, a reflection, even a bug crawling near the lens. Nothing. The door itself shuddered with the strike, but whoever, or whatever, had made it wasn't there. I even stepped barefoot to the window and peeked outside. The street was calm, washed in the orange of the street lights. Not a single car moved. By the third night I was obsessed. I kept the feed open before the hour struck, volume low, breath held. When 4 a.m. arrived, the knock didn't come immediately. 10 seconds passed, then a single thud against the wood. This time I saw it. A hand. Gloved, dark leather, sliding quickly out of frame as if teasing the lens. The body stayed hidden, low or to the side. I froze with the phone in my hand, every instinct torn between dialing the police and yanking the door open. But the clip ended as soon as it began, only a few seconds of footage. When I replayed it, the hand was unmistakable. Thick fingers, glossy material, gone too fast to catch more. I stayed awake until sunrise, lights on in the living room, staring at that door. On the fourth night, I didn't bother trying to sleep. I sat by the front window with the blinds tilted, phone recording. When the clock ticked 4 a.m., the sound came, louder this time. Not one knock, but three in a slow rhythm. Then again. And again. The hand appeared, pressing against the wood, fingers splayed as if feeling for warmth. It lingered there, knocking steadily, never revealing the body it belonged to. The knocking went on for nearly a full minute. I counted the beats, pulse sinking with each strike until my vision blurred. I whispered to myself that it was some prank, some neighbor's kid, but the weight of those knocks felt deliberate, patient. Whoever it was knew exactly where to stay out of frame. Knew how the camera saw. And they wanted me to hear it, not just see it. On the fifth night I broke. The knocks started again, slow and steady, vibrating through the frame. My chest tightened with every hit. I gripped the doorknob, sweat slick on my palms, the camera feed still rolling in my other hand. One thought circled in my head. If I didn't face it now, it would never stop. I unlatched the deadbolt, heart hammering against my ribs. When I pulled the door open, the porch was empty. The night air was sharp, still. No footsteps retreating, no car idling. The hand was gone. But the knocking kept going. I heard it, clear as day, inches from my face, yet nothing struck the wood. My breath caught. My voice cracked in my own skull. Would you dare open it just once? The silence afterward felt worse than the sound. I stood on the porch until dawn, waiting for movement, for any sign of who had been there. By morning, I knocked on my neighbor's door, desperate for confirmation. He checked his own security camera. The footage showed me opening my front door at 4:02 a.m., looking into the empty street. And then, just barely in the corner of his frame, a figure crouching low by my steps, staying perfectly out of sight. I don't sleep through the night anymore. I keep the lights on, phone charged, blinds closed. Sometimes I still wake at 4 a.m. sharp, heart pounding, waiting for the sound. I haven't heard it again, not yet. But I can't shake the thought that whoever, or whatever, hid from the camera is still out there, waiting for me to open the door a second time. Story 5. The delivery that wasn't it started with a box left on my porch at sunset. The problem is, it didn't exist by morning. It was 6:27 p.m. when my Ring doorbell chimed. Golden light still stretched across the street, catching the corner of my porch as a man in a courier's uniform walked up. He set down a medium-sized box, nodded once at the camera, and left without a word. Nothing unusual, except I wasn't expecting a delivery. I waited until the truck's taillights disappeared before stepping outside. The cardboard box looked ordinary enough. Brown tape, no labels. No company logo. I bent down, touched it, lightweight, too light for anything real, and brought it inside anyway. By the time I checked my phone for a delivery notification, there was nothing. Amazon, UPS, FedEx. No record at all. I left the box on the kitchen table, uneasy. When I finally cut through the tape, I found nothing. Empty space. Just cardboard and air. I almost laughed, thinking maybe it was some kind of prank by kids in the neighborhood. But when I checked the footage again, the man wasn't a teenager. He looked mid-30s, professional, like he belonged in that uniform. I told myself it was a mistake. Wrong address, wrong house. The next morning, though, the box was gone. I don't mean I threw it out. I mean it wasn't in the trash, wasn't in recycling, wasn't anywhere. I searched the whole yard, the garage, even the side alley. It was just gone. That evening, right around the same time, the chime rang again. Same golden hour light. Same man in the same courier uniform. This time he placed 2 boxes on the porch, one stacked neatly on top of the other. No truck in sight. No sound of an engine. When I replayed the footage, he seemed to appear at the edge of the frame like he'd walked from nowhere. I didn't bring them inside. I left them there overnight, determined to prove to myself they were real. But by morning the porch was bare. No boxes. Not even a scuff mark where they'd been. My neighbors hadn't seen anyone, and the motion alerts on the camera showed nothing after he left. It was as if the boxes had erased themselves. For the rest of that week, the visits continued. Every evening the man appeared on camera. Some nights he left 1 box, other nights 3, all different sizes. Always taped, always blank. By the time I checked again in the morning, they were gone without a trace. My Ring app became a ritual, me staring at the pixelated figure, waiting for him to look up. He never did. By the 4th night, I noticed something worse. Each box was placed closer to the door. First at the mat, then against the frame, then angled almost into the threshold as if nudging for entry. I started double-checking the locks, even sliding a chair under the knob like my grandmother used to. Still, I'd wake up to nothing outside, the chair untouched, the videos intact. Then came the night he didn't leave anything at all. At 6:27, right on schedule, the chime rang. I pulled up the feed and there he was, same uniform, same slow walk up the porch steps. Only this time his hands were empty. He just stood there, inches from the lens, his face tilted slightly upward. I waited for him to set something down. He didn't. He just lingered. I whispered to myself that it was a glitch, maybe some old footage looping. But the timestamp kept ticking forward. His chest rose and fell. He was breathing. And though his face was turned directly toward the camera, every time the frame sharpened, the features blurred. Not pixelated. Not out of focus. Blurred like someone had smeared over his face in real time. The next morning, a real delivery truck finally pulled up. A young driver carried a box with my actual name on it. Before he left, he paused, frowned, and asked if I knew the front door's lock had been tampered with. Scratches all around the keyhole like someone had tried, and failed, to force their way in. My stomach dropped. I hadn't touched the lock since the night before. I checked the Ring history again, desperate for proof. But every clip showed the courier's body, his movements, the boxes, and every time his face turned toward the lens, it blurred into nothing. Not once, not by accident, deliberate. Like he wanted me to know he was real but not know who he was. The boxes, the lock, his silence, they're all gone now. Except the thought that won't leave me, would you ever open the box?